Today we welcome special guest Katie Mabrey. She has become a fantastic friend of mine. She is an Arcturian Starseed, and we recently went on a spiritual trip to Arkansas where we had incredible experiences with the Sasquatch. We're going to be talking about this today, her Starseed awakening, and her journey into plant medicine. That being said, plant medicine is something that is very sacred. People have different opinions about it. This is simply an open discussion. Katie is sharing her experiences. I'm not telling anybody to go out and do plant medicine. So just as a disclaimer, this is an open discussion. Use your discernment, do your research, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. And before we get started, if you are interested in trying CBD or looking for a new CBD supplier, I've partnered with Hopewell Farms CBD, and right now through April 23rd, they're running a 20% off sale. Just use the code LILY420 with the link in the description until April 23rd. And if you are looking for a Reiki healing session, if you need your chakras cleared and balanced, or you would just like to work with the inner earth beings, I have a channeled deep chakra healing session available with the link in the description. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Starseed Chats. I'm Lily Nova, and I have special guest Katie here with me today. This is hello, Katie. Thanks for coming in. She's an Arcturian Starseed, and she's actually, so I did a session on Katie probably like over 6 months ago, and so she's a member of the community. She's often on the live activations on Sundays. And whenever I did your session, Katie, I just knew it was pretty intense. So I knew that there was just like something about you. And so I'm glad that we stayed in contact. Welcome, Katie. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I feel a little bit more immature compared to a lot of the guests, but I'm really glad to be here because I think we all have beautiful things to share. So
no, yeah, definitely. And we're all going through it together. So you're fairly new, we're kind of fairly new to this. We're just really diving into it, but things have gotten intense pretty quick. So, yeah, let's kind of start from the beginning. Like, when did this start happening for you? And so you're an Arcturian Starseed. You've been able to meet your Arcturian star family, which is what I'm all about. I'm all about meeting star family and developing your gifts and abilities. So this is just kind of started happening to you. So do you want to share a little bit like how the beginning?
Yeah, I'll kind of start with the awakening. So I was working at, my family owns a bank in Oklahoma, and we started it in 1901 with some other people. And so my uncle had recruited me to come work at the bank, and I was working there for about a decade. And I loved working with my family and loved feeling like I had a purpose, but banking was just not my speed. And something internally was just really calling me. And then Oklahoma actually voted in 2018 for the medical marijuana license ability. And so when that was happening, I just knew something was calling me towards plant medicine. And I mean, I just, on a soul level, I knew I needed to go and leave the bank and go find a new route. And so I left the bank. My last day was the last day of September of 2018. And my spiritual awakening began October 17th, 2018. Like, it was that fast. And I think it was just like trusting those, I pulled the card the other day, like trust the niggle, it was like the niggle inside that was like, I finally trusted it. And I think that's what allowed my spiritual awakening to begin. And I went through it was very spiritual for a very long time. Meditations, Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, stuff like that. And then it became galactic probably in early 2021 is when the galactic stuff started coming in. And I found you last year. And I think that's probably been my biggest help. You were talking about the chakra cleansing. I've actually been working with a Starseed coach over the last couple of months, and she goes, somebody has cleared a lot of unnecessary layers for you. And I was like, oh, that was Lily.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's been a very gradual over the last 4.5 years, but over the last year, it's just been like taken off and gone galactic. And I think I had a feeling last summer I was sitting underneath the stars every night and just staring at Arcturus. And one night I finally pulled my starseed thing out and I was like, oh, that's Arcturus. And she just talked to me all summer long. And then I met with you, I think it was right at the beginning of September. And that's when you confirmed. the
Mm.
Arcturus, and it's just there's something about that confirmation, just like understanding like, oh, I can trust myself.
Yeah,
That has felt
definitely.
really good. It's really allowed me to open up since September because I've actually put trust into it.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I also wanted to talk. So Katie and I, we went to Arkansas together just recently. So I wanted to dive into that too. She got to meet the
Hmm.
Sasquatch as well and work with the Sasquatch. So we'll talk about that in a minute over the spring equinox. That was really powerful. But going back to our reading with each other, if
Hmm.
if there are people who I think I talked about this on a live activation a while back, but so I meditate for my readings. I meditate for about 45 minutes to an hour beforehand. I make contact with your star families and guides and just see what comes through. And I remember before our call, I had to use the restroom real quick. So I went into the bathroom, and whenever I went into the bathroom, I looked, I like sit down on the toilet. I look in front of me, and there's an Arcturian coming like through the wall.
We're very
It was
aggressive.
That was the most intense I think I've ever that was the closest encounter, one of the closest encounter definitely the closest encounter that I had at that time. She was just, like, starting to kind of bleed through the wall and, like, kind of phasing in, and I was just staring at her, and I'm, like, trying to go pee, and I'm like, "Whoa, this is really trippy." And even, like, your reading, whenever I was meditating for you, I think I told you this, it was like a psychedelic trip.
Hmm.
Your meditation. It was pretty wild. So I knew from that, like your star family was going to be very, very involved and you were going to, develop some cool abilities. And there was just something that felt a little bit different about you. So I got to meet your Arcturian star family. Um, and then kind of like what happened after that? Did you begin communicating with them or
So
how did that?
I actually didn't. I've been trying so hard. I mean, I think I'm definitely getting like signs, and I use my pendulum a lot to ask questions. And I use my pendulum a little bit differently. It's a clockwise circle is yes, still is no. And then I can ask either or questions like if it's this, go back and forth, or if it's this, go side to side, or go at a diagonal, and they've been pretty responsive through that. I think I still have some more clearing to do to be able to open up like telepathically and do some really cool communication. But when we were in Arkansas, I think that was it the night before or something, you text me and you were like, Moana is reaching out to me, one of your star family members.
Mhm.
And so I worked really hard on connecting with her when we were in Arkansas. Plus, I think the crystal grids did a lot of clearing on us in Sasquatch. But what I've started doing is just asking, like, send me a word I would never use, a word I'd have to look up, something like that. And they sent me two words when we were in Arkansas. One was ubiquitous, and the other one was bamboozled, and they were both very fitting in my moment. And last night I was actually scrolling through TikTok, and I had bamboozled come up like 5 times, and I was like, "Oh, Moana's trying to contact me," you know.
That's amazing.
So it's really interesting when you're at that very verge of like, you're about to connect, but you haven't, like, you're still questioning yourself. Like, it's all about trusting those signs and letting them come in and really believing in them. And the more you do, the more I watched you do that in Arkansas.
What's that?
Just like understanding, like believing all the signs that you're getting and leaning into it. And the more that you do that, the more they give you.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd like to go back on the pendulum real quick. So that
Hmm.
is a really good training tool to help you develop your intuition. So that's actually really that's how I started getting a deeper communication with them,
Hmm.
with my star family. Words would pop in my head, or I'd get feelings and things like that. And then the pendulum began. At first, I had like a little it was like a little board with like yes, no, it had the different chakras. So that's how they told me, your heart, you need to work on your heart chakra, you need to do this, all that.
Hmm.
So there were like words and stuff on the board as well. Kind of like a Ouija board, but it was like a spiritual chakra, like, you know,
Yeah.
and that was really helpful. And then as I practiced with that, I began to feel what it feels like in my body. Like whenever I ask a yes question or a no
Hmm.
question, I begin to feel what it feels like in my body. And your intuition is like a muscle. So it gets stronger as you work at it. So there's definitely nothing wrong with using a pendulum. And I've had some people say that they don't know if the answers are coming through clear or not. And I did get some interference in the beginning with the pendulum. So what I advise people to do if they want to use that as a tool to develop their intuition, talk with their star family or the higher realms, is first clean it off, clear it. You can wash it, just clear all the energies off of it, and then say that only your higher self or your guides of the highest love and light can come through this pendulum. Just say it very firm. And then once I did that, then that's all I got. So yeah, that's just a good tip for anybody. And it can be really subtle at first, the signs and synchronicities, and we're all connected. And another thing is, as you raise your vibration, you'll be able to hear them more loudly as well, and your heart. That's another big part of it.
I felt like last night I was starting to hear static. It was like, oh, something's coming in, or it's like something's trying to come in, and I could feel they were clearing between my canals and like in my head and stuff. So
that's awesome. There was, and I want to go back to Arkansas a minute and share that, but there was an experience that you had. Didn't you tell me, like, you had an experience with an avian and you felt wings growing out of your back?
Yeah, I've actually felt that quite a few times. In different, there was one activation you did last fall that was like September, October maybe, and then a few other times I felt it. But it's like you can literally, and I don't know if it's avian or almost angelic or something, but it's like I can feel wings growing out of my back and spreading out and like stretching, and it feels so good. Yeah, that's something I've always had. I'm still trying to figure out that connection, but there is definitely something there.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I can feel it. That's one thing that's interesting. Like I think I'm where a lot of the same people are, especially in the chat. It's like we're still just trying to unravel the story and figure it out. And you learn so much every day. And I think even I've been my Starseed coach, Hope, she's like, you are doing so much work you don't even understand. Like, don't feel like you're not going fast enough or anything. Like, you're doing a lot of work and clearing and stuff. Yeah. So it's been interesting.
Yeah, you're like in Starseed boot camp is what I called it. Yeah, you're training with them every day. Even if you don't know that they are talking to you, you're not getting clear words, you are training with them every single day. And every single day you're getting much better. It's just a process that can take like 6 months to a year, or of, very vigilant, consistent work of activating your DNA and stuff like that. But yeah, we are making quantum leaps. We have a lot of clearing and healing to do at the same time. So yeah,
a lot of clearing from past lives too, so, but it's definitely clearing. It feels really good. So
yeah. I wanted to talk about Arkansas for a minute. So Arkansas had kind of been calling me for a little bit before that, and then I don't know how that happened. I guess you like randomly reached out and mentioned going to Arkansas for the spring equinox. So how did you? I just thought it was amazing going. So we had never met before, and I wanted to also. It was kind of like a nice girls trip. Literally the whole time we were doing spiritual work.
I think my boyfriend was like, well, why don't I get to go? I'm like, because you're not going to meditate the whole time, and we will. It was perfect. It was so nice to really have that much time to dive into your practice and to be with somebody else that connects in the same way. But yeah, I don't even know. It was just a few months ago, something about Arkansas. It's like, you need to go meditate on the grids. You need to go meditate on the grids. And you and I had reached out about something. I can't remember what it was. And I think I just mentioned, I was like, hey, I'm thinking about going to Arkansas. Do you want to go? And something was just calling me. I don't know. I just felt like I needed to go.
Yeah, definitely. And then finding out that there's like over 35 miles of crystals underneath where we went to, the energy there was very heightened. Yeah, that was an intense week. Yeah,
that's one of mine.
Yeah, there were crystals just popping out of the ground everywhere.
When we went to that ranger station, like they were literally oozing out of the ground. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So we did a lot of work. And then right before, I almost forgot about how much work we did while we were there. Cause it's been kind of quiet for me since I got back almost.
Mhm.
Then I'm like, where's everybody at? And then they're like, you're integrating. There's a lot there's still a lot going on. And they showed up last
Mhm.
night pretty like in your face, just, letting me know, like, we're still here. You're integrating.
Mhm.
You need to rest.
I have slept a lot since we got back.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So with Arkansas, I guess I think it'd be cool for the audience to hear just kind of our experiences. Highly recommend anybody who wants to go visit Arkansas or just do a spiritual trip. We did ceremonies. We did like a cacao ceremony. That was my first time doing cacao. And that's a big heart opener. And there were just massive downloads as soon as we got there. Like for me, the first night, I was just getting tons of visions of all of these crystals. So we're connecting with the crystalline grid, and then that's amplifying our intentions, amplifying our energies. And then the first night, I experienced Thoth appeared while I was laying in bed to go to sleep. And I like saw him with my mind's eye, but then I also began to feel him like beside me. And he started just doing like this with my energetic field and was like clearing my energy. I've never had like Thoth like personally like work on me like physically like that. So that was
Right.
pretty incredible. And then in the morning I woke up to this energy just coming in through the window and boom, right in my chest, right in my heart. And it like jolted me awake. I was like, whoa, that was weird. I've never had that before, but that's cool. Uh, yeah, kind of and then we'll go into the Sasquatch thing, but what kind of experiences were you having there? It's just so crazy whenever you get more than one starseed together, especially in an energetically amplified place.
It was so powerful. I mean, like when we were sitting there and you were playing all four of the bowls and we caught that orb and just the vibrations going through the room of just, you don't even know what you're clearing, but you just know you're clearing a lot.
Mhm.
And just feeling so close. I think for me, what it was I'm more of what's the knowing?
Claircognizant.
Claircognizant. So I'm more claircognizant. So it was just like I knew they were around us all weekend long. I mean, when I laid in bed the first night, I could connect with Moana, and then which is the star family that came to Lily right before we went from Arcturus. But also Anubis was around with me a whole lot that week. And I think you even said you saw the dogs in the tree one night. Anubis is a big protector of mine. And so I could feel him around, just kind of like protecting us. A lot of times I think my brain goes into scary places when it doesn't need to. So he's like, stop it, you know?
Mhm.
And then I could really connect with Serapis Bay when I was there. Serapis Bay is one of my guides. He lives in the crystal pyramid at the center of the earth and is all about ascension. And I could just feel Serapis Bay. He was just like, yes, take the crystals, take them home, connect with them, activate them constantly. And so I don't know. It was a lot of that energy.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
wonderful. It was like, especially the first few days, I feel like it was just something new, like left and right, was just
Mm-hmm.
coming through. And then, of course, you have a Crystal Alchemy singing bowl as well, so that was nice getting to like play with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so now moving on to our Sasquatch experiences.
That second night, next to when they kept telling you to go to the trees,
Yeah.
that night was amazing. So Lily and I were, well, I'll let you tell that part of it. We were,
Well, so we went to I guess on the first day, like we had all gotten in the night before and then we wake up, we go to the crystal mine, and then this is where we meet Sasquatch, where I first made contact with them. So I set the intention beforehand on the way down there. I was like telepathically sending messages, we're coming, I'm looking to connect with the Sasquatch. So if you'd like to come say hello. So I sent the intention out. And then whenever we went to this crystal mine called Board Camp, highly suggest that. There's Sasquatch that live on that property, and the guy who owns it has had 9 physical, because he's not very like psychic, like
mm-hmm.
he's had 9 physical contact experiences with the Sasquatch, which is just mind blowing. But of course, if you can receive psychic messages, that's going to be easier for them to communicate in that way. And so we were just digging up crystals, just these beautiful crystals coming out of the ground. And then I went over to kind of by myself for a little bit to meditate, to set the intention to make contact. And as soon as I did, I first see a mom and her 2 children. She's got her arms around them. And then I see like 2 male teens. And then there was about 5 elders and older males that appeared. And they helped me to connect to the crystalline grid. And then they told me that we were bringing keys to the crystals in Arkansas. So it was like a mutual benefit. We were benefiting from the energy from the land, and we were also assisting in clearing and activating the crystalline grid and these keys. So I just thought that was really cool. It was like a very mutual thing. And they stayed with us like the whole time. So that was very lovely meditation with them. The whole family was involved. And then that night, they stayed in contact with us the whole time. And they were mentioning it's in the trees. They told me it's in the trees. So then that night, that's whenever me and you, we went off to the side and went to the tree. Do you want to share your experience with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about the keys. We can talk about this a little bit later with some plant medicine stuff, but I'm understanding a lot more about keys. They've become a really huge theme in my life lately. So I love that we were giving keys, but also receiving keys. I mean, it's just a cycle. But so yeah, later that night, Willie kept hearing it was in the trees. So we walked down to the trees, and she sat against one side of it and I stood against the other. And I could feel, this kind of connects with the mushroom trip that I had recently too, but I could feel my heart chakra. It was like it was melting backwards into the tree, and it was going up into the skies and down into inner earth through the tree. The tree was acting like a medium for that.
Wow.
And then I could feel something in front of me, and this sounds aggressive, but it felt like they were holding me steady against the tree, like don't move. And then there were just so many things that were happening in my throat chakra, which I thought was my throat chakra. When I explained this to Hope, my starseed coach, this morning, she said there's actually another chakra right back here it's not, I can't remember what she called it. I'll put it in the chat, but it's not your throat chakra, but there's another one. And a lot of that has been tied to like programming and whatnot. And so a lot of that is clearing right now. And that is what they were working on. I found out this morning because Sasquatch told her that's what they were working on. So they were sending us keys to work on this extra chakra that has a lot to do with like programming and maybe even worship and, some things like that that's in the human realm. And so it was clearing that. And so we were receiving those shapes, like they were sending us shapes, and it was clearing that chakra apparently. And I didn't even know that was a thing.
Wow. Yeah, I'm gonna have to see if I can get any more information on that. That was one of my main goals for that trip is, yes, to like activate, to develop my abilities further, but also a lot of clearing and healing work. In a lot of the programming. And recently SSP memories have started coming up for me, which with that comes the fear, the negative emotions, the feelings. So having to work through that really for the past 6 months. But then it's like, well, 6 months ago was more of like the Orion Wars, and then more recently has been more of the SSP stuff. So that was one of my main goals on that. For me with the tree, it seemed like it was very focused on my heart. Like I saw 2 male Sasquatch appeared while we were on the tree, and they were sending me shapes. They kept showing me triangles. Triangles and upside down triangles, all of these triangles. And they literally like put their hands like that, and they're sending sacred geometry into us.
And I could feel it coming in. I was like, what is happening?
It was incredible. Yeah, that was amazing. And so you mentioned, so basically the Sasquatch hung out with us all weekend. They were very, very helpful. Yeah, they were there. Like we were there for 5 days, but I wanted to talk to you about the plant medicine also. If you'd want to share some of your experiences with
Yeah, I mean, it just ties so much into everything. Plant medicine, and there's many different levels of plant medicine. I mean, you can start with oregano for antibiotics, as something very benign, or cacao for the heart opener, which is what I'm drinking right now. I'm also, when I left the bank, I went into cannabis, and cannabis has been a really big one for me. Number one, I have a really busy mind. It really helps. Like in the beginning, when I started using cannabis, it was making that worse. It was exaggerating that busy mind. But as I learned how to work with the plant, I learned how to calm my mind and clear it. Now I use cannabis a lot for deep meditation sometimes. Not, I try to meditate plenty of times without cannabis too, but sometimes it really just helps me clear and reach deep down into that next level of meditation.
Mhm.
Um, and so I've owned a dispensary. I own a company called Glazed Edibles, which we do chocolate edibles.
They're
And
so
then,
good.
and then so last summer I got called, and then I've been working with mushrooms. My boyfriend introduced me to mushrooms like 6 years ago. And let me just tell you, the first few experiences were not fun.
Mm.
I had no idea what I was doing. I was using them in a party sense, and highly do not necessarily recommend that. I mean, it can open up people. I do believe things like even cannabis, but cannabis, especially mushrooms, ayahuasca, are things that you really need to be called to. I don't think that it's something that everybody should just run out and just try. I think you need to feel called to these medicines because they know when they're ready to work with you. But so I've been working with mushrooms for quite some time, and see, it was Sedona of 2021. I had a hero's dose of mushrooms on accident. It was a very, very, very high dose. It was close to 9 grams. I didn't know what I was doing. It was a chocolate bar and yeah, whatever. But it allowed me to really work through some really deep seated fear that I didn't know where it was coming from. And I still, now, as of today, I think I'm starting to figure it out. But I've been figuring that out the whole time. But working through some deep seated fear. One time I did a trip and I went all the way to like the very end of creation. One time I went to a trip and I went all to the very beginning of creation. It's just these very intense experiences.
Mhm.
And so anyway, I went to Sedona in 2021 and just had this experience where like I really genuinely felt like I created a monsoon. And I'm going to stick with that because what happened that day was a monsoon of 7 hours that was unexpected, and it was amazing, and I like literally was moving the clouds
Oh my
with
gosh.
my intentions and connecting with Gaia. But so I had that experience, and then something told me that ayahuasca just started calling at me. I
Mhm.
did some research, and so last September on my 41st birthday, I went to do the ayahuasca retreat with a group. I'm happy to share their information with anyone. It was in the United States and very well done.
Mhm. Yeah, tell us about that. I haven't done ayahuasca yet, but I do, know people who have done it. Can you tell us a
Hmm.
little bit about it? Yeah, how your experience was?
Yeah, it's intense and it's extremely different for every person. I mean, no two experiences are the same. Some of the people that I was there with had a pretty bad week. Um, my first night, I don't know what happened. I like went in, all of a sudden it was like I was experiencing, like I became an eagle, and myself as an eagle and a dragon like created earth, and I birthed her, and it was just such a beautiful experience, and I felt like I could like, it just felt really powerful.
Mhm.
And at the end of that evening, I went upstairs to lay down, and my boyfriend Donovan and I had a room we were laying in, and all of a sudden, like I was explaining the entire workings of the universe, like from beginning to end, like how it was created and everything, like just blah 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 blah. It was all coming out, and then at like 6 in the morning, I was like, I gotta go write this down. As soon as I went to write it down, it all left me. But what I figured out, so the whole week, all I was seeing was sacred geometry. Like all these other people are like, oh, Mother Ayahuasca came to me and gave me a message, or I talked to a cougar and this cougar gave me this message, or I met with an Egyptian or whatever. And I was like, nope, sacred geometry. the whole time. And so when working with the Starseed coach, Hope, she's like, okay, well, she's like, some people, when they go to ayahuasca, they meet with guides to help them work through karma. And then sometimes, like, kind of the next level up is you're given codes. And those codes can help you decipher things throughout your life to try to help navigate different ways. And then there's another level of being given keys. And keys are like, the way she explained it to me is everything's made up of sacred geometry, of codes of sacred geometry, right? So like if you have a rose, that rose is made up of millions and millions of codes of sacred geometry, and all those codes create a key, which is the rose. And she's like, you were giving keys. And so it was just sacred geometry, keys, 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 keys. So we did 5 nights of ceremony. On the 4th night, I was like, I'm so sick of seeing sacred geometry. Like, give me anything else. Give me some kind of experience. And so at that point, that night I had an octopus in the corner of the room, like just standing there, an octopus. And I was like, okay. And the octopus had like sacred geometry in its arms. And then it had eyes in its hands. And it was just like, and it was like it was holding back the sacred geometry for me. And just staring at me. And I was like, can you, like, do you have a name? Can I talk to you? Is there any kind of message? And they were just like, I was like, well, at least they're holding back the sacred geometry, I guess. That's what I asked for. So I went through the whole evening that evening just staring at this octopus who was refusing to talk to me. And then we had the 5th night, and I mean, it was absolutely amazing experience. And I didn't feel like I walked away from my experience with a whole lot. But since then, all those codes or those keys have started integrating.
Yep.
And it's like, I'll just be walking through life and I'm like, oh, that's how the 144,000 began. You know, like, that's like, what? How do I know that now? You know, it's like I can now see how I can almost visualize how we went from consciousness to physicality through sacred geometry now because of it in my head. I have no idea how to explain it, but I can see it and feel it. So it gave me that. And then I've worked with mushrooms again too. It took me a while to do anything after that experience in September. But in February, I finally got the nerve to do mushrooms again. And I did another hero's dose. This time it was like 3 or 4 grams. But so I was in Keystone, Colorado, and was very ceremonial about it. Got out my heart chakra bowl, got out all my crystals, lit some incense, said my prayers, called in, you know, kind of the same way you do at the beginning of all the activations. I called in all the angels and my guides. Mm-hmm. And became very, very, very intentional with my practice after going through that intentionality with the ayahuasca. And so this was a totally new experience. So I went through this beautiful experience where, not going to explain everything, but basically there was a really major storm happening in Keystone, Colorado at the time, like whiteout type snowfalls. Yeah. And so Gaia and then Kuan Yin, who I think Kuan Yin was the octopus I was seeing in ayahuasca because she has eyes in her hands and she has 8 arms. And I think they just didn't know I would know it was Kuan Yin. So the only way they could communicate to me was through an octopus, which I have here now. Yeah. The kyanite. But so when I was in Keystone, Gaia and Kuan Yin and I combined with the mushrooms, and we all 3 turned into the octopus. And the octopus legs were like just rolling and rolling. And as they were rolling, like all these keys that I've been holding on to started releasing into the storm in Colorado. And these keys of enlightenment were like sprinkling down over all of the area where the storm was. And then it told me to like go to the bath. And so I went to the bath and I cocooned into child's pose and let the water rise up over my body. And then when I did that, I emptied the bath water and like all those light codes dripped off me and down into the sewer system and the canals into inner earth of Colorado to help clean up a lot of the ugliness around there. Mm-hmm. And then the last time I did another 5 grams last weekend. And that experience was the most profound so far. And this was right after we got back from Arkansas, right? So
Yeah.
we've done all this clearing and everything. And I spoke to Hope this morning and she helped me figure out what happened. But there was just this point where like my energy was coming up from inner earth and from Gaia up through me and going up. And then there was an energy coming down. And the only way I know to explain it is like, you know, in Avatar when their tails lock?
Yeah.
Felt like we locked like that. And so I connected from down here and they connected from up there. Have you ever heard of monad?
That sounds familiar, but I don't know what.
Or the monadic connection?
What is it?
So your highest version of your highest self that is literally sitting with God is your monad. That monad breaks into 12. And then those 12 each break into 12. So we are one of the 12 of the 12. So there's 144 of us that all connect back up to the Moad connection or the monad connection. And she said my guides told her that I actually connected with that for a moment last weekend. Lily, I cannot even begin to explain to you what that felt like. The feeling of touching the brink of the 12th dimension is the most powerful feeling I've ever felt in my entire life. I kind of came out of it. It took me about 45 minutes to get back into my body. I mean, I literally was like shaking and like hitting myself and like trying to get back into my body, just drink some cacao, like whatever I could do to ground. It took me about 45 minutes to an hour to ground back into my body. But once I did, my boyfriend had let me have this experience by myself because he knew I needed it. And then he came back into the bedroom and when it was over and I was standing there and I just started bawling. I mean, sobbing in a way I haven't cried, I don't know, in a long time. And it was a feeling of like love, connection, relief, believing you're knowing, like I don't know what to say, but anyway, so I guess I touched the 12th dimension of myself and brought some of it back with me. I know it's back here and I have felt like a different human since last Saturday.
Wow.
It was really, I mean, like I want to be very careful because I don't want too many people running out there just like trying to get connections through plant medicine, because I really do believe that you have to be called, and when you do it, I think it's doing it very intentionally is great. But if anybody ever wanted to contact me and reach out and ask about that, I'm more than happy to work with them on setting intentions. And you know, you kept bringing up the upside down triangle in Arkansas too, and so I created an upside down triangle pyramid in my bedroom. When I did it, I had my galactic crystals on one side and then my earth crystals on the other, and then my inner earth crystals at the bottom of the bed. And so I kind of created a portal for that experience.
Oh, wow.
It was crazy.
That's incredible. Yeah, you didn't tell me about that experience.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I was like, oh my God, this has been like, it was the most intense experience I've ever had. I mean, it was next level. It was awesome. But I think, you know, keys kept coming up for us in Arkansas too. And I think it's just something based on all these keys. Like, I feel like my purpose is really big. I mean, all of our purposes are, right? I know that, but very much still trying to figure mine out. Still right at that beginning of like, all right, things are popping up. I know something's about to kick off, but I have no idea what it is. And I keep trying to find my direction. And what I've decided is that it's just not worth it. Like, let it go, get in the flow, let my higher self guide the direction. And once I've started doing that, things are starting to flow.
Yeah, that's amazing. Really great advice.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the key thing with the sacred geometry, some people, they do see sacred geometry during meditation and visions, and they may not know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
After hearing that, I appreciate it more because it's keys. It's some sort of a key or code or something that is activating you. And then it just may take some time for your consciousness to kind of catch up and raise. into that, for that to be fully expressed. That's just amazing because we're receiving codes and everything all the time. We kind of have to let our bodies catch up,
Mm-hmm.
because our bodies are going through a lot as well. Yeah, the plant medicine, my take on it, I did dabble. I do dabble. I haven't done ayahuasca. But in the beginning, microdosing was very, very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't like full blown like tripped in I don't know how long, but microdosing has been very helpful. Yeah, it just helps you. I remember having experience whenever I'm like going through the Starseed boot camp, Source is teaching me, I'm starting to talk to God, these UFOs and I'm talking to aliens, all this stuff is happening. I'm learning that we have spirit guides. I'm seeing Jesus, angels, all of this crazy stuff. I'm like, what's going on?
What?
And that was mostly sober. That was mostly completely sober, but I
Mm-hmm.
was dabbling. The mushrooms helped, the microdosing in that, and that's just a little bit. Um, I do remember having experiences where I felt so connected and so one with everything
Mm-hmm.
that I remember like one time I was like thinking, like wondering where something was, and then in an instant I knew exactly where it was. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
connected to every single thing. I reached in my purse, grabbed, like didn't even have to dig around for it, reached right in, pulled it right out, and I was like, whoa.
It does. If you are stuck and you are looking for something, it is, and microdosing is an amazing way to get started. I'm taking such a low dose that you don't feel anything psychoactive, but it can kind of just help loosen up some gunk inside, I think
Yeah.
is what it does.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's an antidepressant.
Mm-hmm.
It
It's
helps and yeah.
way more effective. Plants over pills.
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually something that the star beings on my recording of the whenever I made CE5 contact, it was an audio recording while I was making contact with ships, positive beings from Zeta Reticuli. I believe they were hybrids. They looked more human and they had elf ears. A while back, that's posted on my channel, but that they were showing me mushrooms. And they said mushrooms are going to be a big part of what shifts the consciousness on the planet using this plant medicine, the shift, and we're seeing that. There's a lot of scientists that are now like hopping on board this and studying it, and they're just amazed by the result of it helping with PTSD. So it can help with past life traumas, childhood traumas, all of these things. And there was something else that I was just about to say. Okay. So whenever my spiritual awakening first started, this is whenever I was like, oh my, the mushrooms came in. My first like really big vision, I went to a group meditation and I had the most intense visions. It took me like that. It was like 45 minutes to ground, maybe longer for me to ground back into my body after this. Like
Mm-hmm.
after it was done, I looked around the room and I was like, did you guys not see that? Like, is that normal? Because I guess I was like taken out of my body, and I saw a being come up to me. At first, I thought it was an alien. It was like a golden being, just a silhouette of this golden being. They came like right up to me. They walked right up to me, like face to face, and then they were like kind of taking me through these different scenes. And it was going very quick. It was like a movie set. Fast forward, one scene. I realized that they were showing me my past lives, taking me through a bunch of these past lives. And this golden being was like guiding me through this. I found out afterwards that was my higher self. Gold is like the color of, the divine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very beautiful experience. I felt like I was literally there. And at the end, they were showing me a dancing mushroom.
That's awesome.
And I was like, is God telling me to do mushrooms?
Whenever I work with my Starseed coach, like she's like, I've never told anybody to do more drugs, but I kind of feel like you need to do more drugs. I was like, I know, it's really weird.
if you're called, and then so I kind of felt like bad about it whenever I saw it. I was like, I don't know if God's telling me to do mushrooms. Then like a few days later, I had a dream where I was like driving in a car. I looked to my right, there's huge mushrooms, just I'm passing these huge mushrooms by. And then something else happened where I was like, okay, I think the universe is telling me it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Well, I
You
mean,
know?
the Matrix has programmed us pretty well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it has. And so a lot of us look at these things and we're like, oh, those are drugs, those are bad, whatever. When really, when you look at Peru and the way they look at ayahuasca, or Mexico and the way they look at mushrooms, their consciousness, their enlightenment, I mean, they bring such amazing things that, but that's why they've been targeted to become such negative things. I mean, of course, they didn't want us doing things that are going to create enlightenment over the last 12,000 years,
Yeah. It's very sacred. It just kind of felt weird because that like biblical Christian view of like God is,
Mm-hmm.
An all punishing,
Mm-hmm.
God, and he doesn't want you to do drugs and all that stuff. I was working through that. Also, but yeah, these things are sacred. A good friend of mine, she's super Native American, super Irish, and she helped me think about mushrooms differently too. She said, you never just do them for fun. Like each time you do them, the mushrooms are teaching you something. You
Uh-huh.
ask the mushrooms to teach you something, and you can actually. I have a good friend who actually works with mushroom spirit, like the spirit of the mushroom. You can communicate with that consciousness. You can even communicate with crystals. Whenever I whenever I first got this moonstone crystal and my labradorite recently, they came to me in a vision and they were like talking to me. I was like, oh my God, I've never had a crystal talk to me. But these things are conscious, so you can actually
That's
communicate more.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like part of my plan, my future going forward is going to be wrapped around a lot of like normalizing plant medicine and mushrooms and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know that, but it definitely feels like that's part of my future. So,
I think so too, because I remember in our reading they showed me mushrooms.
mm-hmm.
Like,
And you got to experience a little bit of my trip.
yeah. They gave me a psychedelic trip too.
It's intense.
Yeah. So just for anybody watching, definitely, I mean, use your discernment. If you haven't, done it before, just be safe. I'm not telling you to go out and do it, but, just enjoy the conversation, use your discernment. But it can be helpful if taken in it's sacred. It's just like with the sage, it's sacred smoke. You're doing a sacred ceremony with it. So
Mhm.
that changes everything whenever you make it into a ceremony and you use your intention, and it's all for your enlightenment and your spiritual growth. It can be an incredibly beautiful and powerful thing.
I also find that when I am very intentional and I sage the room ahead of time and I call in my guides and I set up my crystal pyramid grids and really pray over the mushrooms before I start, I don't experience a lot of negativity in the beginning. For years in doing mushrooms, like I'm like, why am I glutton for punishment? I don't know why I keep doing them, but there's a lot of that scary wildness in the beginning that I experienced. And since I've been working through it and doing it very intentionally, I don't experience that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting to see how the trip changes when you're using your intentions versus not.
Yeah.
So,
And there was something that happened on the Arkansas trip. Didn't you were hearing like sirens or loud noises or something?
yeah,
Can you share about that? Because I think that was like working through something.
that was, so I am at the beginning of a trip for anywhere, depending on how much I take, 30 minutes to a couple hours, it can
This was
be
just a
like,
micro. This was just a microdose
oh,
too.
we took like a tiny one. I mean, I usually am a hero dose person, and we took a tiny one. And I was like, oh, this will be easy. No, she still kicked my ass. But it goes through like, it's like a lot of noises. It's a casino. It's the monkey with the cymbals clashing. It's the jack in the box popping. It's just extreme static noises and whatever. And it can be very fearful. And I did experience that in Arkansas, but what I noticed is I didn't experience fear around it. Like it was just happening, but I was in a very calm, loving space. And so the next time I did them, when I did them last weekend, I didn't experience it at all because I think I just cleared through it. And I had actually talked to my Starseed coach about that as well, and was kind of wondering if that was maybe some SSP programming or something, which It turns out I have been involved with that, but it's been a very long time. It was not in this lifetime. And so I think it was just chatter from my soul that just still needed to calm down and quiet. But once I acknowledged it and I gave it the appreciation it needed, it was allowed to move on. And then I didn't experience it the next time.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. The like calming the reaction. You know, there's that phrase, there's nothing to fear besides fear itself.
Mm-hmm.
That reaction. Yeah, that can be a tough one to work through, you know, especially with like traumatic experiences like SSP experiences and things like that. But that's really cool to hear that the mushrooms help you to work through that.
If you're willing to like recognize the lessons and accept them and integrate them, they will help you. Mm-hmm. But you got to be willing to look at yourself hard and make sure that you're accepting the lessons.
Yeah, exactly. You got to be willing to look at yourself in the mirror.
It's not always fun.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, that's what I appreciate about you and a lot of people who watch the channel, especially those who are doing the live activations. Like, we're digging in, we're mm-hmm. doing the work, mm-hmm. and they're applauding us right now. Like, as I was saying that, I got a vision of them like applauding us.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're making waves. We're doing really great work. Do you have any examples for those who may, for kind of like plant medicine? You had mentioned like oregano and cacao for somebody who do a ceremony like that or setting intention, with something.
And if you guys have any specific questions on plant medicine, feel free to reach out to me through Telegram or whatever. You can send me private messages. And I actually have access to quite a bit. I've got some really cool stuff at the house from like Four Visions Market, which is out of Peru. It's Peruvian medicine made in the Amazon forest that are thousands of year old recipes made into tinctures for like brain function, kidney function, respiratory function. Even I have one for the nervous system. I know we've been talking about the nervous system a lot recently and just trying to calm it. Really great stuff like that. But when you go down the rabbit hole of plant medicine, I started with cannabis just because I was like, oh my gosh, I really want to find a way. For me, I started using plant medicine for cramps. I had really severe cramps my whole life and was on tramadol, and I hated being on tramadol. It's just, it's a big old narcotic. And so I went to Denver and I tried an edible. And when I'm saying my pain was gone, tramadol never took my pain away. It dulled it at best. My pain was gone. I was in a good mood. I mean, I was able to function all day long taking that edible. So that's what really introduced me to it. And then I went down the rabbit hole of starting an edible company and opening the dispensary. And it's just really opened my eyes to like everything we need to heal is on this planet already. We are not machines to be treated with chemicals. Mm-hmm. We are humans to be treated with organic plant material. And so like oregano is amazing. It is almost as effective as like a store-bought antibiotic. But you don't become resistant to it over time, oregano oil, like you do antibiotics. So like if you just take oregano and soak it in coconut oil for 6 weeks or olive oil for 6 weeks in a dark, cold place and then strain it, then you can use what's left and use that for an antibiotic. Like garlic and honey are great for congestion. Mullein is a really, really great plant medicine for congestion. You can either smoke it, or like sometimes I add it to my bowl. Or you can do it as like a steam bath and put your head over it. And it will, like, you talk about an expectorant, like everything will start coming out. So you don't need to go buy cold and flu medicine. It's just really opened my eyes. And then cacao is probably my favorite right now. Cacao is a natural, it's so good for your heart. And so it is an actual heart chakra opener as well. And so I add oat milk to make it creamy and heat it up. I forgot to tell Lily to warm it.
I was making it like
it's really hard to mix if it's not warm. And then I add a little bit of honey for allergies, local honey for allergies, a little bit of cinnamon for good fortune, and a little bit of cayenne, so that when the cacao opens your heart, the cayenne opens your vessels and it allows everything to pump.
I need to get cayenne. That's the only thing I was missing. And on the cinnamon real quick, the Star Beings told me this like months ago, few months ago, maybe like 4 or 5 months ago, about cinnamon.
Mm-hmm. I remember you mentioning that. I was like, yes, I love cinnamon.
Yeah, specifically cinnamon. They told me like 3 things, specifically cinnamon. Since then, I've gone through almost 2 full. I have it every single day. I add it to my coffee, add it to my tea, add it to my pancakes, everything.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Cinnamon's fantastic. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, just, I mean, I've fallen in love with plants. I mean, if you go into the other part of my house, you'll see nothing but plants.
Yeah.
But just and I feel like using these plant medicines and having some plants in your home just really help us to connect with Gaia anyway. Bringing some life into your home, into your 4 walls, helps you connect with Gaia. And the one thing I've learned when I first started getting into all this, especially the galactic, I was like, I want to learn about up there. I want to learn about up there. But I wasn't grounding very well. And I found that the more I ground, the higher I can go. So I was like, I don't want to focus on grounding. That's boring, But then now I found that the more I ground, the higher I have the ability to travel. And so using things like cacao, keeping plants in the house can just help that on a daily basis.
Right. Yeah. And that's just the root chakra activation we did. And if anybody wants to try that, it's you just click the live tab. And so we did a root chakra activation. And that's one of the things that the star beings like began drilling in my head. And I worked on the root chakra for months, being grounded. Like picture a tree. Your roots have to be firmly grounded or else the tree can't grow. You're not going to have this big old tree that's like way up in the sky with just like a little tiny root. Like you need to be firmly grounded. So that's exactly right. Like the more grounded you are, the higher you can go. I like that you mentioned that.
Perfect example with the tree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I just got a bunch of plants too. So I'm starting to talk to them. I'm talking to them. They're starting. It seems like they're responding to it. So that's
Yeah.
kind of nice. I like it. It definitely livened up. It made me feel better. Definitely.
Nice. Since we've been home from Arkansas, I've been going out. I have 2 trees in the backyard, and I've been going out and I take turns sitting on one tree or the other. And I'm starting to like finally tell the difference in their energies and in their personalities. And it's been fun. I can go to them for different things now. So that's been since connecting with the crystals and Sasquatch.
That's awesome. That's amazing. So I guess to wrap it up, where can people find you if you you said people could reach out to you if they'd like?
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me through Telegram. I'm on Lily's channel. And then I do have an email. It's IAM Katie, Katie, Rains, RAINS @gmail.com. I don't really have a website or anything like that. I'm just kind of figuring all this shit out right now. So, but yeah, email or Telegram. And then Katie Mabrey on Instagram and Facebook. But I did just delete those apps. So
Did you?
yeah.
Nice. So. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was wonderful speaking with you.
Yeah, thanks, Lily.
Yeah, it was so much fun going to Arkansas with you. I'd love to plan more trips like that, especially like the girl trips. It was so nice. Like we didn't wear makeup for a week.
I was like, I'm going to look totally different. I actually fixed my hair and did my makeup today. Lily didn't see me like that at all.
It's okay. It was nice just kind of chilling and focusing 100% on our spirituality and ascension. It was very nice. So hopefully we can get a bigger group together at some point to do that. That would be really awesome.
I'd love to go back. I really would. It'd be a lot of fun. So, and then just at the conference, might throw in a little thing for the conference. We're both going to that in May.
Yeah, the Journey to Truth conference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'll leave the website for that if anybody else wants to join. Me, Katie, Victor's going, or Robert White, Order of Light, a ton of other people are going. It's in Grafton, Illinois, and it's you can find out more information on that in journeytotruthcon.com. I'm just putting the link in the description now for anybody who wants to look up more information. But I'm super excited you're going.
Yes, it'll be a blast. So.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And thank you, everybody who is watching. Please give this video a thumbs up. Drop your comments. Feel free to reach out to Katie if you want to share any experiences. And I'll see you later, Star Brothers and Sisters. Bye.
Bye.